The rain was falling hard on the city of Virelia, a mix of neon lights and broken dreams. When Ethan stepped out of the transport hub carrying a small box of food and tools, he had just moved to the outer district, a quiet place where few humans lived. The area was known for strange rumors, whispers of tunnels under the streets. Where old alien shelters from the war still existed, Ethan didn't believe in such stories. He was a repairman, a simple man who fixed machines for a living. His life was quiet and he liked it that way. But that night, as thunder shook the ground, he heard something strange near his apartment's back alley. A soft metallic sound mixed with a faint cry. He turned his head. The alley was dark, but a flicker of movement caught his eyes. A small glowing circle blinked near the dumpster. It wasn't trash, it was an eye, not human. Ethan stepped closer. His boots splashing in the puddles. A girl, no, an alien girl, was crouched behind the crates. Her skin had a faint silver tone, her eyes deep blue with glowing veins running beneath them. She looked young, scared, and exhausted. "Hey, are you okay?" Ethan asked carefully. The girl flinched. She looked ready to run, but couldn't. Her leg was wounded, bleeding blue. She whispered something in a trembling voice. "Don't come near, human. You smell like the surface." Ethan stopped, confused. The surface? She looked up slowly, her expression tired but sharp. "You don't belong down here, plain human, but you're perfect." "Perfect? For what?" he asked, still not understanding. She hesitated, then looked over her shoulder as if afraid someone might be listening. "For my sister," she whispered. "She was raised underground. She can't survive sunlight, and she needs someone normal." Ethan didn't know what to say. The words made no sense. Who were these sisters? Why were they hiding? Lightning flashed, and for a second he saw strange markings on the girl's arm. Symbols of a species he had only read about in old war archives. Subterrans, an alien race believed to be extinct after the collapse of their underground world. "You're supposed to be extinct," Ethan said softly. She looked at him with tired eyes. "So are the kind ones," she replied before collapsing forward. Ethan caught her just before she hit the ground. Her body was light, too cold. He looked around, no one in sight. He didn't think, he just acted. He carried her inside his small apartment, laying her on the couch for a moment. He stared at her strange face. Her skin shimmered like wet glass, her breathing uneven. He cleaned her wound carefully, using the basic med kit he kept for work injuries. Her blood was thick and glowing faintly. When she finally opened her eyes again, her gaze was softer. "Why help me?" she asked. "Humans don't help shadows." Ethan smiled slightly. "You were bleeding, that's all the reason I need." She stared for a long moment, then whispered, "You don't understand what you've done, human. They will come." "Who will come?" he asked. "The Seekers," she said, her voice trembling. "They hunt anyone from below. And anyone who helps us." Ethan froze. The rain outside grew heavier, thunder rumbling closer. The air felt charged. Before he could speak again, the lights flickered, then died. A low hum began outside the window, a deep mechanical sound, followed by flashes of blue scanning light sweeping across the buildings. The alien girl pushed herself up weakly. "They found me," she said. "You must run." But Ethan stood firm. "Not without you," he said, grabbing his old plasma tool. The girl's eyes widened at his tone. "You're plain, but stubborn," she said with a weak smile. "My sister will like that." A loud crash echoed outside, metal boots hitting the pavement. Ethan moved toward the door slowly, ready for whatever was coming. As he turned back, the girl's last words before blacking out made his heart pound. "If we don't survive, tell her the surface smells like rain." Outside, shadows moved closer through the storm, blue eyes glowing in the darkness, and Ethan realized this night was only the beginning. Something had crawled up from the forgotten tunnels of the world, and it had found him. But what truly chilled him wasn't the danger. It was the thought echoing in his head. She said, "I'm perfect," for her sister who was raised underground. He didn't know it yet, but his quiet life was over, and the world beneath the surface was about to change forever. The power outage painted Ethan's small apartment in shadows. The hum of the scanners outside was growing louder, flashes of blue light cutting through the blinds. The alien girl was still unconscious on the couch, her breathing slow but steady. Ethan's heart was racing. He knew those sounds weren't from any police patrol. Whoever the Seekers were, they weren't here for questions. He quietly grabbed his toolkit and pulled out an old plasma cutter. The tool wasn't a weapon. but tonight it would have to be one. He closed the curtains and crouched beside the window, peeking through a narrow slit. A black hover transport had landed across the street. Its insignia was faded but still visible, a circular emblem made of 3 claws. Ethan recognized it from a banned file he once repaired at the city archives. It belonged to an old extermination unit, one rumored to still hunt survivors of lost alien colonies. The girl on the couch stirred, whispering something in a low voice. Ethan leaned closer. "What did you say?" Her eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly. "Don't let them scan you," she said weakly. "If they mark you, you're one of us." Before he could ask how, the door shook violently, a metallic clang echoing through the room. Ethan's instincts screamed to move. He grabbed her and rushed toward the back door. But before he reached it, a blue beam cut through the wall, vaporizing part of the frame. 3 armored figures entered, tall and cold, their faces hidden behind masks with narrow glowing slits. The leading one stepped forward, scanning the room with a floating drone. Ethan ducked behind the kitchen counter, pressing his back against the cool metal. The girl gripped his sleeve, whispering, "There's a vent. Behind the stove." He didn't hesitate. He pulled the panel aside, revealing a narrow shaft just wide enough for one person. "You first," he whispered. She shook her head. "You go." "They'll kill me anyway." Ethan looked straight into her alien eyes. "Not happening," he said, and gently pushed her through. The sound of boots echoed closer. The Seekers were moving in. He crawled behind her into the shaft, closing the panel silently. The vent was dark and narrow, the air thick with dust. The girl moved slowly, her glowing veins faintly lighting the path. The hum of the scanners faded behind them as they crawled deeper underground. After several minutes, the shaft opened into a forgotten subway tunnel. Water dripped from the ceiling. The girl finally stood, breathing hard. Her wound was worse now, blue light seeping through the bandage Ethan had wrapped. He tore off his jacket and tied it tighter around her leg. "You're losing energy or blood, whatever that is," he said quietly. She looked at him with a weak smile. "Energy, not blood. Our kind stores it, from the earth below." Ethan nodded, not really understanding, but doing his best to help. "We need to find your sister, right? You said she was still down there." The girl hesitated, her expression turning serious. "You're too bright for her world, human. She hasn't seen sunlight since birth." "Then I'll bring light to her world," he said simply. She blinked, confused by his calm tone. "You're strange, plain one," she said softly. "You don't fear what you don't know?" Before Ethan could respond, a low rumble came from the tunnel behind them. He turned. Small hovering orbs were gliding through the air, red scanners flashing. "Run," she said. Pulling him by the hand, despite her wound, she moved fast, leading him toward an old service door. Ethan forced it open, revealing a descending staircase. The smell of soil and minerals filled the air. The temperature dropped, the deeper they went. The more the walls changed, from metal to stone to glowing roots that pulsed faintly like veins of light. Ethan touched one of them. "What is this?" The girl's voice softened. "The living veins of our world. The ones that feed us. My sister guards them." As they reached the bottom, Ethan saw something that made him stop. The tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber, a hidden world beneath the city. Bioluminescent plants glowed softly, and strange crystalline structures formed arches over pools of shimmering water. At the center stood a figure cloaked in silver threads. Her skin was paler than moonlight, and her eyes were closed, but she moved as if she could feel everything around her. The wounded girl dropped to her knees. "Sister, I failed." The figure turned, opening her eyes slowly, revealing pure white irises that glowed faintly. Her voice was calm but powerful. "You brought a human here?" Ethan froze, realizing he was face to face with the one she had spoken of, the sister who had never seen the surface. "He helped me," the girl whispered. "He saved me from the Seekers." The pale one stepped closer. Her movements soundless, she circled Ethan, studying him as if he were some rare creature. Then she stopped right in front of him and said, in a voice like quiet thunder, "You're so plain, human. Perfect for me." Ethan didn't understand, but he saw something new in her eyes, not hatred but curiosity, almost longing. Before he could speak, the chamber walls trembled, the sound of metal footsteps echoing from the tunnels above. The Seekers had found their way down. The pale sister extended her hand toward Ethan. "If you wish to live, plain one," she said, "follow me into the dark." and as the ground shook and the air filled with the hum of machines, Ethan realized he was standing on the border of two worlds, one of light, one of forgotten life, and that his next step would decide which one survived. The air beneath the city was thick and cool, alive with faint whispers that echoed through the glowing roots in the walls. Ethan followed the pale sister deeper into the tunnels, his boots sinking into soft soil that pulsed with light like living veins. Behind him, the wounded alien girl limped slowly, her glowing blood leaving a faint trail on the ground. Every few steps, Ethan glanced back, half expecting the seekers to appear again. But the deeper they went, the more the mechanical hum faded, replaced by the sound of trickling water and faint humming, like a song sung by the earth itself. The pale sister finally stopped near a large cavern where the air shimmered with energy. She turned to him, her silver cloak flowing around her like mist. "You breathe easily here," she said, her voice calm but watchful. "Most humans choke within minutes," Ethan frowned. "Why would I choke?" "Because this place rejects the surface-born," she replied, stepping closer. "But you smell like soil after rain. Pure and plain. That's why she brought you." Ethan didn't know what to say. The younger sister smiled faintly. "Told you she'd like you," she whispered, sitting down against the wall. The pale sister knelt beside her, placing her hand gently over the wound. The roots in the ground began to glow brighter, wrapping their light around the wound until it sealed completely. Ethan watched in silence, amazed. "You healed her," he said softly. The pale sister didn't answer. Her attention was on him now. "Why risk your life for one of us?" she asked, her tone serious but curious. "You owe us nothing." Ethan shrugged slightly. "Because someone had to." She tilted her head, her white eyes studying his face. "Strange creature. Humans once hunted us for being different, now you protect us. Why?" Ethan looked around, seeing the glowing world around him. "Because not everyone deserves to be buried," he said quietly. "Not if they're still alive." The pale sister's expression softened for the first time. Her glowing eyes dimmed slightly as if she was trying to remember something old and buried. "My name is Vinra," she said at last. "And hers is Lyra. We are the last of our kind." "Or so we believed." "Vinra," Ethan repeated. "You said you were raised underground, right?" She nodded. "Our people fled here during the purge. When humans burned the surface to drive us out, my mother sealed the tunnels. She told me the sun kills. That light is poison. So I stayed in the dark. I learned to live with the roots, with the whispers." Ethan stepped closer. "And you've never been above?" Her gaze dropped to the soil beneath her feet. "No," she said softly, "but I dream about it. The smell of rain, the wind, warmth. My sister brings me stories of it. She says the world has changed, that the war is over, but I can't go there." Ethan took a deep breath. "Maybe you can," he said. "The world above isn't perfect, but it's not burning anymore." Vinra's lips curved into a faint smile. "Hopeful human. Do you know why my kind fears the sun?" He shook his head. She extended her hand, her pale skin catching the faint glow of the roots. "Because it reminds us of the stars," she said. "And we used to live among them before humans fell from the sky. You came from beyond once before the war, before your kind forgot." Ethan frowned. "Are you saying humans didn't start on Earth?" Lyra laughed weakly from the ground. "You really don't know your own history, plain one," she said. "The first humans came from the same stars we did. You just forgot the way home." Before Ethan could ask more, the walls around them pulsed red. Vinra's expression changed instantly. "They found us," she whispered. "The seekers are near." A loud metallic growl echoed from the tunnels, followed by a beam of blue light slicing through the passage. Ethan grabbed his plasma cutter again, his mind racing. "How do we fight them?" "You can't," Vinra said firmly. "But I can hide us." She pressed her palm against the ground, and the glowing roots coiled upward, forming a barrier of living light. It wrapped around them like a cocoon. The air shimmered, and the world outside went silent. Ethan looked around in awe. "What did you do?" "Shifted us," she said softly. "Not far, just out of sight. But it won't last long." Lyra stood, testing her healed leg. "Sister, he shouldn't stay. If the Seekers catch him, they'll mark him as one of us." "I'm already marked," Ethan said quietly, pulling up his sleeve. There on his arm was a faint blue glow where her blood had touched him earlier. Vinra's eyes widened. "Then you share our link," she whispered. The Earth will answer you now, Ethan frowned. Answer me? I don't even know what that means. Before anyone could reply, the barrier trembled, voices echoing outside. The Seekers were too close. Vinra grabbed Ethan's wrist, her eyes glowing brighter. If they catch you, the surface will burn again, she said. You must leave. Ethan shook his head. Not without you. Lyra looked at her sister and then at him. He's plain, but he's stubborn, she said with a smirk. Maybe that's what we need. Vinra stared at Ethan for a long, silent moment, then whispered, Then listen. Human. Beyond this cavern is a bridge of crystal. It leads to the core. If we reach it, the Earth will hide us completely. The barrier finally cracked, beams of light piercing through. The Seeker's shadows loomed large on the walls. Ethan tightened his grip on the plasma cutter. His voice calm. Then we run. Vinra nodded, the glow of the roots flaring as if the world itself answered her will. And as the first Seeker burst through the barrier, the cavern exploded into light. The ground trembled, the roots came alive, wrapping around metal legs and tearing them apart. Ethan pulled Vinra forward, running through the storm of light and sound. Behind them the earth closed, swallowing the attackers whole, and for the first time, Vinra looked back at him not with fear, but with something that almost looked like faith. The tunnel shook as the Seekers screamed behind them, metal claws scraping against living roots that refused to die. Ethan didn't look back, he only held tighter to Vinra's hand, her skin cold and faintly glowing under his touch. Lyra ran beside them, her silver hair catching flashes of blue light from the chaos behind. The cavern opened into a vast hollow, and Ethan stopped for a moment, breath catching. Before him stretched a bridge of glowing crystal that arched over an endless chasm. The light below wasn't fire, it was something alive, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. This is the crystal bridge? He asked, his voice barely steady. Vinra nodded, her white eyes reflecting the glow. The last link to the core, she said. Once we cross it, the world itself will decide if we belong. Lyra turned, looking back toward the tunnels. And if we don't? Vinra's voice dropped to a whisper. Then the core will consume us. Ethan looked down, his reflection swimming in the bright crystal. The path ahead looked endless. The hum of power vibrated under his feet. Let's go, he said, taking the first step. The bridge responded with a low, deep tone, a vibration that traveled through their bones. It felt like the earth was speaking, a voice older than all of them. Vinra's expression changed slightly, like she could hear words in that vibration. What's it saying? Ethan asked. She looked at him, eyes narrowing. It recognizes you, she said, her voice soft but tense. It shouldn't. Before Ethan could ask why, the bridge flared brighter, his footsteps leaving glowing prints behind him. Lyra stared at the pattern. Sister, the core marks him as one of us. That's impossible, Vinra whispered. He's human. Ethan stopped. What does it mean? Vinra hesitated. It means the core sees you as its own child, she said slowly. Maybe you are the key that opens it. They moved forward again, their pace quickening as mechanical echoes followed from the tunnels. The Seekers were relentless, but something strange happened. As they stepped farther along the bridge, the sound of metal began to fade, like the machines were being swallowed by the earth. Vinra looked back, her expression unreadable. The core protects us now, she said, but it also watches. Halfway across, the bridge suddenly split, a new path forming beneath their feet. The air shimmered, revealing shapes of ancient machines buried beneath layers of crystal and root. They looked human-built, old exosuits and transport shells, forgotten by time. Ethan knelt, brushing dust from an old emblem on one of the metallic plates. It was written in faded English letters, Terra Colony, Undo 1. His heart skipped. This is human tech, he said. This is from before the collapse. Lyra crouched beside him. You see, Plain One, she said softly. You didn't just fall from the sky. You left once and came back. Vinra looked around the glowing chamber, her expression turning almost reverent. The first humans built this bridge, she whispered. They made the core alive, and then abandoned it when they feared its power. Ethan stared at her, realization dawning. So your people didn't come here from somewhere else, he said. You were born from the same world. Just deeper, Vinra smiled faintly. Two halves of one lost race, she said. One who ran from the stars, one who hid beneath the soil. A tremor ran through the bridge, cracks forming beneath their feet. The light flickered violently. Lyra stumbled. It's rejecting something, she shouted. Vinra pressed her palm to the crystal, eyes glowing. It senses confusion, she said quickly. It doesn't understand if you're a savior or a curse. Ethan placed his hand beside hers. Then let it decide by truth, he said. I didn't come here to destroy anything. The light beneath their hands grew brighter. The cracks began to seal, and for a moment everything was still. Then the bridge sang, a low, deep tone that made the air shimmer. From the far end of the chasm, a structure rose, a massive pillar of crystal with streams of light spiraling around it. It looked alive, breathing. The core, Vinra whispered, awe in her voice. It's awakening. As they approached it, shapes began to move within the crystal walls. Shadows of figures, human and alien alike, trapped together as if frozen in time. Ethan stepped closer, his hand trembling. These are people? Vinra nodded slowly. The ones who made the pact, she said. They gave their life force to merge the two worlds, surface and underworld, but their link was broken when the war began. Lyra looked at Ethan. Maybe that's why the core called you. You carry both the scent of surface and the spirit of soil. Before Ethan could respond, the ground exploded behind them. Blue energy flared as the Seekers finally broke through, their weapons humming. Go, Lyra shouted, pulling her plasma blade. I'll hold them. Ethan turned back instantly. No, you're coming too! But Vinra grabbed his arm, her voice firm. She's right. The core needs only one link to awaken fully. You must touch it. Ethan's heart pounded. The Seekers were advancing, firing beams that tore chunks out of the crystal. Lyra fought fiercely, the light of her blade clashing against their metal claws. Vinra pushed Ethan forward. Go, Plain One. The core chose you. He ran toward the glowing pillar, every step echoing through the chamber. The light wrapped around him brighter with every breath. When his hand touched the core, the world went silent. A wave of light exploded outward, and for a moment, Ethan saw everything. The stars above, the tunnels below, humans, subterrans. The wars, the pain, and the endless circle of fear. Then he heard a voice, not human, not alien, but the earth itself whispering through his mind, child of two worlds. Will you heal what was broken? And Ethan, still shaking, whispered back, yes. The core pulsed once, slow and deep, and every Seeker froze mid-motion, their lights fading. Their weapons falling silent, Vinra looked up, tears glowing on her pale cheeks. He did it, she whispered. The core accepted him. But even as peace settled for a heartbeat, the crystal bridge began to crack again, louder this time, and the core's glow turned from calm white to blinding gold. Something massive was waking beneath them, something that hadn't moved in centuries, and Ethan realized this was only the beginning of what the core had planned for humanity. The chamber was shaking, the crystal walls glowing gold as the core pulsed like a living heart. Ethan's hand was still pressed against it, light crawling up his arm like liquid fire. The voice inside his head whispered again. Calm yet powerful, you chose unity, human. But balance demands sacrifice. He stumbled back, gasping. His body trembled as the golden light faded from his skin. Around him, the Seekers were motionless, frozen mid-attack like statues of metal and shadow. Lyra stood nearby, panting and blood-splattered. Her blade dimming, Vinra rushed to Ethan's side. What did it do to you? She asked, her tone full of fear. Ethan looked up at her, his eyes reflecting faint gold. It showed me everything, he said softly. The wars. The reason this place exists. The core isn't just alive, it's a bridge between both species, but it's dying, Vinra. It's running out of energy. Vinra's expression darkened. That can't be. The core feeds from the earth itself. He shook his head. Not anymore. The connection's breaking because the surface stopped breathing. Too much pollution. Too much silence, the core's veins are starving. Lyra wiped her blade on her sleeve. So what happens if it dies? Ethan's answer was quiet but heavy. Then both worlds collapse, the surface cities will sink, and your tunnels will flood with molten rock. Everything ends. For a moment. The only sound was the faint hum of the dying core. Then Vinra spoke, her voice trembling. There must be a way, Ethan nodded. There is. But it's not easy. The core needs a living link, a life form that carries both human and subterranean traits. Something to anchor its balance, Lyra frowned. Those don't exist, Vinra turned to her slowly. Maybe they do now. Ethan realized what she meant. Because of the mark, he whispered, looking at the faint blue glow still running under his skin. Your blood mixed with mine. Vinra's hand trembled as she touched his wrist. The core called you for a reason. It sensed that fusion. It wants you to complete it. The ground rumbled again, louder this time. Cracks spread through the crystal bridge like lightning. The core's light was flickering, fading between gold and dark crimson. Ethan looked toward the tunnel where the Seekers stood frozen. If I do this, what happens to them? They'll stop forever, Vinra said softly. The core made them when it was broken. Mindless guardians made from fear. Not balance, Lyra clenched her fists. Then do it, Plain One, she said. You're the only one who can. Ethan took a deep breath, stepping closer to the massive crystal. If I merge with it, what happens to me? Vinra hesitated, her eyes glimmering like moonlight. Your body will remain, but your soul will join the core, he smiled faintly. So I'll become part of the earth. Vinra's voice broke. Part of everything, he looked at her then. Really looked. The pale alien who had lived all her life underground, afraid of the sun yet shining brighter than anything he'd ever seen. If this saves you, it's worth it, he said quietly. Vinra shook her head, tears glowing on her cheeks. Humans destroyed us once, and now one human will save us. How strange this circle is, Lyra stepped closer. You don't have to do it alone, Plain One. The core accepts connections, it can take more than one. Vinra turned sharply. No, Lyra. But Lyra smiled, tired and calm. You need both halves to make the bridge whole again. One from the stars, one from the soil. Ethan looked between them. You mean, Lyra nodded. We do this together. Vinra's lips trembled. No. You'll die. Lyra placed her hand on her sister's shoulder. We already died the day we went into hiding, sister. This time we rise. Without waiting for another word, Lyra stepped forward beside Ethan and pressed her hand against the core. The light burst out instantly. Flooding the entire cavern, the floor cracked open, and the frozen Seekers shattered into dust. Vinra screamed, running toward them. But the light pushed her back, blinding her. Ethan felt the core's voice again, stronger now. 2 hearts, 1 purpose. The bridge will hold. He looked at Lyra through the storm of gold and blue. You ready? She smiled faintly. Plain One, you smell like rain. It's time I saw it. Their hands met on the crystal surface, and the core responded like thunder. The ground shook violently, sending waves of light through the tunnels and up to the surface. Above the city, buildings flickered as energy surged through the foundations. Neon signs died out, replaced by soft natural light that rose from below. Vinra fell to her knees, watching as the light wrapped around her, the roots of the earth pulsing with new life. Tears streamed down her face. He's gone, she whispered. They're both gone. But then a voice, deep and gentle, filled the air, not from the core, but from everywhere at once. Not gone. Reborn. Vinra gasped as the golden light condensed into a new figure within the core's heart, a fusion of Ethan and Lyra. Human features blended with alien glow, eyes calm and kind. The figure spoke softly. The worlds are one now, Vinra. Tell them the surface and the soil no longer fear each other. The light pulsed once more and vanished. Leaving silence, Vinra stood slowly, her hand pressed to the warm crystal. Plain One, she whispered, her voice breaking. You changed everything. The core hummed gently, alive again and above the ground. For the first time in centuries, the rain carried a faint golden shimmer. The humans on the surface would never know what happened deep below, but the earth had a new heartbeat, and it carried both flesh and light. Vinra looked up toward the ceiling of stone and whispered into the dark. You were plain human, but perfect for both worlds. The tremors finally stopped. Leaving the air heavy with silence, Vinra stood alone before the glowing core, its golden light softer now, calm like the breath of a sleeping giant. The cracks in the bridge had sealed, and the tunnel walls pulsed with new color. Green, gold and blue weaving together like veins of rebirth. Ethan and Lyra were gone, their forms dissolved into the light. Yet their energy still surrounded her. Vinra could feel their warmth on her skin, their voices lingering in the hum of the core. She whispered, You did it, Plain One. You made the earth remember us. The core answered with a gentle vibration that spread beneath her feet. Symbols began to glow across its surface, ancient runes mixing with human letters. Forming one unified script, she reached out and touched it, and instantly visions filled her mind. Fields above ground beginning to heal, rivers clearing, clouds moving like they once did before the war. She saw humans standing outside their metallic cities, watching as flowers began to bloom through cracks in the pavement. They didn't understand why, but they felt peace for the first time in generations. Vinra fell to her knees, overwhelmed by the beauty of it. For centuries, her people had hidden in the dark, believing the sun was death, but now she saw light as healing. Then she heard it, a faint voice through the core, soft and familiar. Vinra, come see it for yourself. It was Ethan's voice, distant yet clear. Her eyes widened. Ethan, she whispered. The core pulsed once in response, a small opening forming at the far side of the cavern. A tunnel, newly made, carved by the core's energy. It led upward, glowing faintly like a path of sunrise. Vinra hesitated, fear tugging at her chest. Her kind never went up, not since the old days. The light burned their skin, or so they were told. But Ethan's voice came again, softer now. You're stronger than the fear, Vinra. I made sure of it. She stood slowly, her cloak of silver threads brushing the glowing floor, and began to walk. Each step echoed softly in the tunnel. The deeper she climbed, the more she felt warmth wrapping around her. Not harsh, but gentle like morning light at the end of the path. She reached a stone archway sealed by a thin veil of golden mist. The air beyond smelled different, fresh and vast. Her heart raced. The surface, she whispered. She lifted her hand toward the barrier, expecting pain, but when her fingers touched the mist, it parted like water, warmth flowing over her skin. It didn't burn, it welcomed her. She stepped through and the world changed. The sun rose over a wide valley, the sky painted with hues of orange and silver. Trees stood tall around her, their leaves shimmering faintly with golden veins. The core's energy had spread here too. The air was clean, alive. She took a deep breath, her first true breath of open air, and tears filled her eyes. So this is light, she whispered, smiling through the tears. For a long moment she stood there, feeling the wind touch her face. It was strange and new, but it felt like freedom. Then she heard footsteps. Vinra turned sharply, instinctively hiding her hands beneath her cloak. A group of surface dwellers was approaching, humans wearing simple repair suits and travel gear. They looked wary but not hostile. The leader, a young woman with soot-streaked cheeks, froze when she saw Vinra. You're one of them, she whispered, her voice shaking. A sub-Terran? Vinra met her gaze calmly. Not one of them, she said softly. One of us. The humans hesitated, exchanging glances. The ground opened last night, one man said. The machine stopped, the skies cleared. And then we found this valley. It wasn't here before. It was always here, Vinra said gently. You just forgot how to see it. The woman stepped forward cautiously. Did you do this? Vinra shook her head. No, a human did. One you called Plain. He gave himself to heal what both worlds broke. The humans fell silent, unsure what to say. One of them, a child, peeked out from behind the woman and whispered, Are you an angel? Vinra smiled faintly. No, little one, I am what your ancestors buried. And what you have found again. The wind blew softly, carrying golden petals across the valley. Vinra looked up at the sky and felt Ethan's presence in the sunlight. She whispered quietly, You were right. It doesn't hurt, the young woman finally spoke. What happens now? Vinra looked toward the horizon where mountains glowed faintly. Now both worlds must learn to live together. The core has given us a second beginning, but it will need caretakers, both human and sub-Terran. The man frowned. Caretakers? Vinra nodded. You will feel the call soon. The earth will speak to some of you the way it spoke to me, to him. You will hear it in your dreams. The humans exchanged uncertain looks, but the tone in her voice carried truth. Then faintly, the ground beneath them glowed again, patterns spreading outward in soft lines of gold, forming the same symbols that had appeared on the core. The child pointed. It's beautiful, Vinra smiled. It's home, she said softly. For both of us. She turned her eyes back to the sky, where light shimmered in waves like breath. The connection between above and below was no longer broken. It was alive. The woman stepped closer to her, offering her hand. If you'll teach us, we'll learn, she said. Vinra looked at her for a long moment before taking the hand. Then the earth will listen, she replied. The sun climbed higher, and its warmth touched Vinra's face. Her skin didn't burn. Instead, it glowed faintly like silver kissed by dawn. She closed her eyes, whispering to the wind, Plain one, your light lives on. And somewhere deep below, in the heart of the core, a pulse of gold answered, as if Ethan smiled through the very soul of the world. Weeks passed since the day the core awoke, and the world above and below began to change in ways no one could have imagined. The golden veins of light that had spread across the earth were now part of everyday life. They pulsed faintly beneath streets, forests, and oceans like the heartbeat of a living planet. Humans and subterrans slowly began to meet, not as enemies or myths, but as neighbors trying to understand one another. At the center of this reborn world stood Vinra. Now known among both sides as the Bridgekeeper, she lived between the two realms, half her days under the sunlight she once feared, half within the glowing tunnels that had raised her. Her silver cloak had faded from fear's dull color into the bright shimmer of unity, woven now with strands gifted by human engineers who wanted her to know she belonged to both worlds. Every morning, she would stand in the valley where she first emerged, feeling the pulse of the core beneath her feet. It still spoke to her softly, sometimes in Ethan's voice, sometimes in Lyra's. Always calm, always familiar. That morning, the pulse was different, faster. Like a message trying to form, she closed her eyes, whispering, "Ethan, what is it?" The ground responded with warmth spreading up through her hands, and words began to glow faintly in the soil before her. "Go below." Her heart tightened. It had been weeks since she had gone deep underground. The tunnels had been changing, alive and new, unpredictable. But she knew the core's call couldn't be ignored. She gathered her silver cloak and began her descent, the tunnels lighting one by one as she walked. The deeper she went, the more the whispers returned, soft songs of her ancestors blending with new tones, human words joining them in harmony. When she reached the great chamber where the crystal bridge once stood, her breath caught. The core had transformed. It was no longer a pillar of gold, but a living sphere floating gently above the ground. Its surface shimmered with millions of lights, each one pulsing in rhythm with the heartbeat of the planet. Vinra stepped closer. "You called me," she said softly. "What do you want me to see?" The core answered by lowering its glow until she could see a reflection in its surface. A face formed within the light, human features with faint alien marks glowing across the skin. Ethan's eyes, warm and steady, looked at her through the golden haze. Vinra's breath hitched. "Ethan," the reflection smiled faintly. "You kept your promise." His voice said gently, "The worlds live again." Tears blurred her vision. "You said you were gone, I am," he said softly, "but not lost. The core holds memory, and my memory holds you." She pressed her hand to the glowing sphere, her fingers trembling. "The people above still struggle, Ethan. They don't all understand what you gave. Some fear us. Some think we're the cause of their broken past." His reflection tilted its head slightly, the same way he used to when thinking. "Then remind them that fear is just memory without hope," he said. "Teach them what we forgot, connection." She nodded slowly. "I will, but what of Lyra?" The light pulsed brighter, and for a moment another figure appeared beside him. Lyra's familiar grin lighting the golden mist. "Still here," her voice echoed, playful as ever, keeping him from turning into a boring spirit. Vinra laughed through her tears. "You both changed everything." "No," Ethan's voice said gently. "We only opened the door. You walked through it." The core began to hum, the tone rising like a song, Ethan's voice fading into it. "Vinra, listen carefully. The core is growing, reaching beyond the earth. It's calling the stars now. It remembers where we came from. Someday, others will hear it." Her eyes widened. "Others?" "Yes," the voice said. "Humanity didn't fall from the sky alone. The stars remember too. The signal has already gone out when they arrive. Don't let the same fear rise again." Vinra's heart pounded. "You mean the old colonies?" The core flashed once as if nodding. "Prepare them," Ethan's voice said softly. "They will come." The light dimmed, his image slowly fading, leaving her hand pressed against warm glass. She whispered, "I'll be ready, Plain One." As she turned to leave, she saw something new, roots growing upward, reaching toward the ceiling as if seeking the sky. Flowers began to bloom where once there was only stone. The underground was no longer a place of hiding. It was becoming a garden. When Vinra returned to the surface, the valley had changed again. Humans were working side by side with subterrans, planting crops in golden soil, building homes that blended technology with nature. Children from both worlds played together near the glowing rivers, their laughter echoing like music. She smiled, walking among them. Some bowed to her, others simply waved. She didn't need their worship. She only needed their unity. That night, as stars filled the sky, she climbed a small hill overlooking the valley. The constellations shimmered brighter than ever before, and for the first time, a faint golden thread extended upward into the heavens, a signal, stretching far into the void. She felt the cores hum beneath her feet. Ethan's words echoing softly in her mind. They will come, Vinra whispered into the wind. Then let them find a world worth meeting. The golden light reflected in her silver eyes, and she smiled at the stars, knowing Ethan's legacy wasn't just buried in the earth, it was reaching for the cosmos. The plain human who healed a broken world had become its eternal heartbeat, and the alien girl who once feared the sun now guarded its future. Under that glowing sky, both worlds finally breathed as one, and far beyond, the stars listened, waiting for the next story to begin.